My name is Megan Hamilton. I have been practicing witchcraft since I was 14 years old. I've been reading tarot cards since I was about 14 years old. And my background is I have okay, so I'm just like not hung over, but like I had an edible last night so I could sleep. And I'm not high, but like sometimes I just have like words just get kind of mushed around. So then I'm reaching for it and it's like I'm grasping at air and it's like, where did it go? So I have a bachelor's degree in women's studies and I have domestic violence counseling training. And on top of that, my patron deity is the goddess of Freya, and I practice heathenry, which is Nordic paganism. It's a reconstruction of what we assume our ancestors, our Scandinavian ancestors, worshipped way back prior to the Christian conversion. And so the form of magic in that tradition is called Seidr. And I am a Seidr Kona. And Seidr Kona really just means witch, just a woman who practices witchcraft. And Seidr literally just means witchcraft, where the person does magic, and they're like a wise person, or that's literally just what it means in Old Norse. So I have learned a great deal in my time doing magic, and also learning about basic psychology, how humans function, the human nervous system, how trauma affects us, and how that can manifest in reality and also in like the spiritual realm. So my topic is anger. And anger is one of those things that I would say I feel like it's safe to say we all struggle with, because we live in a society that doesn't really make a lot of room for it. And the kind of anger that is allowed is usually the stuff that comes out of like men who are expressing toxic masculinity because they don't know any better, because we live in a society that is kind of screwed up. So we have really toxic notions of anger. We have, on the one hand, this is the only thing that is societally acceptable for like man-shaped people to express. That's their only emotion. And then on the other side, like femme-shaped people are not allowed to do any of that, but all of the other emotions are perfectly fine for them. I have kitties. So, in terms of like pronouns and gender, I'm going to do my best to be as inclusive as possible. I'm 36 years old and I'm still learning all of the different changes that everybody is making. Changes are fine, language changes. So I am not intending to offend anybody. I am just still figuring out all of the language stuff. So for me, gender is really just like, sometimes I just feel like I'm an alien and I'm playing like a cis female person, like female shaped person, and it's like, okay, that's cool, whatever. Um, so then for everybody else has their own experience of it. So when I say like male or female, I really mean in the societal context of the United States, where everything is kind of fucked up right now. So people are socialized differently. You come out of the womb with your genitals shaped one way or another way, and therefore you are treated completely differently. So that is what I mean. So when you have only like one half of the population is allowed to express certain things, and then the other half of the population is only allowed to express certain things, that can cause a lot of trauma. That could cause an enormous amount of harm. And it takes a long time to unlearn a lot of that. Now, also in the spiritual community, depending on the tradition you're coming from, that can also be very difficult, because in the spiritual community, and I'm speaking like, I'm making a broad generalization here. When I say spiritual community, there's a lot of people who fall underneath that umbrella term. There's a lot of practicing of this thing called spiritual bypassing, where you go from having a issue that you're upset about and you go straight to forgiveness. You go straight to letting it go, and you bypass all of this other stuff because it is treated and looked at poorly within our community. And part of there's a lot of reasons for that. Part of it is just the dominant societal expectations that go with it. And there's also like the prosperity gospel and like the things like The Secret. I have a lot of comments on The Secret that have they're none of them are good. They're all bad. My opinions on all of that, because back when I was a baby witch in my late teens and early 20s, all of that was around, and I took that in hook, line, and sinker because I didn't know any better, and it really fucked me up. It really did some harm. And then I got help. I got my counseling training. I had counseling. I had really good teachers, and I found better books. And I joined an Al-Anon community because my father is an alcoholic. And so then I kind of pieced together the rest of, my emotional spectrum and how anger is actually incredibly useful and can be really, really good for you. Because one of the things that, say, abusive people, say you're in an abusive situation, doesn't have to be romantic. It can be your boss. It could be a coworker. It could be your dad, your mom, your brother, your sister, your friend. Somebody in your life that that you do have to interact with on a consistent basis, where if you get angry at them for what they're doing, you get punished for it that much more. You're not allowed to react in anger to what other people are doing. And that's fucked up. And it's not right. So one of the reasons for that is anger holds another person accountable. And if they are not ready to be held accountable, they treat that as an attack. They treat it as, oh, now you're attacking them. Now you're being just as bad, when that's not what's happening. So being able to sit with that tension, to sit with that kind of thing, it takes time. It takes time to learn how to sit with those feelings. It takes time to sit with the tension of like, this person did some bullshit. You're angry about it. They don't want you to be angry about it. They want you to just get over it, and then they're going to continue to ride roughshod all over you. And holding on to that anger and not letting it go takes an enormous amount of bravery. It takes a lot of practice, because anger is a boundary. When you get angry, that is your nervous system, that is your body, your soul, telling you where your no is. It's telling you that you are just done. Like, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. And I'm talking about like righteous anger, not that toxic shit. I'm talking about like when you have been harmed and this is the natural consequence of you being harmed. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a very good thing. That is what saves us. So it takes a while to learn how to do that, how to defend yourself, especially if you've been in a situation that is not good, has been toxic for a while, like the chairs on the Titanic have been set, and switching them around. What's the point? Well, that's a journey. That is a journey that you need to go on if you are comfortable doing so, because the other part is like when you're in it, when you're in that bad situation, when you're in that toxic environment, if you're living with this person, you're working with this person, and however long this pattern has been going on, you are going to be the one who has to change the dynamic. It's going to be on you. You are going to be the one who has to change it if you want to do that. Otherwise, like, you have to find a different housing situation, you have to find a different work situation, you have to, like, just a lot of stuff has to change, and that takes time, that takes some money, and that takes, like, an enormous amount of support. Like, you need to have other people who are on your side to help you in that. I have a cat. He's a dick. Jen? Hell, man. All right. So when I get magically active, the cats are like, oh my god, and then they start chasing portals in the house. All right, gonna put my hair up because I'm getting hot, because when I get emotional, then it's just like, and then it's like, oh my god. Okay, so one of the things that holds us back from being in that space of righteous anger and being able to use anger as a boundary is this feeling of like, it's my fault. Like, you'll go to anger and then it'll go to shame, and you'll just like shove it back in there and just like close it up tight, just like to put the top back on the basket. And that is a learned behavior that stems from childhood. So, the way we raise children, the adults that they become, is why the society in which we're living in is profoundly fucked up in terms of like people being able to express themselves, their actual emotional bandwidth, and their anger. Because too often anger in children is misconstrued as disrespect. So you have a child that you are in charge of, whether it's your child or someone else's, or you're just babysitting, or they're staying with you, or whatever. You do something, you say something, or they're in the midst of something, they're trying to do something, and then that child reacts with anger. What usually happens? The adult yells at the child, tells them to stop it. Like, that's like the one side of it, all the way towards hitting that child, striking that child, punishing that child for being angry. Speaking for myself, I believe that is wrong. That is absolutely wrong. Like, there's so many different ways to handle a child who is angry that does not include striking them, that does not include yelling at them, and does not include punishing them. Like, the disciplining of children, like actual disciplining of children, is one thing. Like, setting up like a good, healthy environment with structure and helping kids regulate their emotions when they get upset, when they get angry, being there for them, helping them regulate it. Like, yeah, your anger is valid, all of those things, and trying to figure out what is actually happening. What are they actually feeling? What is actually causing the upset? And then dealing with that. And then they calm down and they're not angry anymore. That is a child who will grow up to know that their anger is healthy, and they are less likely to be taken advantage of or find themselves in situations that then turn into abusive situations. Not every time, but a lot of the time. Because I'm not speaking in broad strokes with that, because everybody is different, and everybody falls into abusive situations in different ways, and it's nobody's fault. Like, if you find yourself in an abusive situation, that is not your fault. Like, that's the other thing with, like, you know, like The Secret and shit, like thoughts become things, like you attracted your abuser. Nonsense. That is absolute fucking nonsense. That is a giant steaming pile of bullshit. Abusive, dysfunctional people go to everyone. They go to everyone. They're not picky. They've never been picky. People who are shitty will go where they're welcome. They'll go where people don't kick them out. So, like, it's not your fault that they're there, that they came into your life. But when you see those red flags over and over and over again, and you have been conditioned from childhood to, like, if you respond in anger, you get punished, then that person is going to stay in your life. That is not the abused person's fault. It never is their fault. But if you have a better understanding of your own anger and are more comfortable with defending yourself, then that abusive person, that abusive situation, that abusive boss, you don't stick around, or you're able to set the stage for the relationship where it doesn't go that way because your boundaries are solid. So, like, say you're an employee and you got a dysfunctional boss and you get the job and they're already like being a weirdo and you're able to actually defend yourself, one of two things will happen. They'll either fire you or they'll actually have respect for you and will not pick on you. One of two things. Because that's how abusive people go. It really is just like there's no way to know how that person who is in a position of power will react. Because I've been in a lot of those situations where like, and it's really just, it's a mixed bag and it's different every single time, and you gotta be able to adapt and roll with those changes, and also having an understanding of just how trauma works, how basic like psychology works, why people are abusive, and why they go and do that to other people. Because those, like the abusive person is also angry, and they're also expressing it in a dysfunctional manner. And one of the reasons why they do that is because they have not been challenged enough by people external to themselves. Their parents didn't challenge them, their teachers didn't challenge them, other people who had power over them, they either didn't see it, or they just were like, you know what, I don't really want to deal with this right now. So because those people, and there are so many of them, just across the world, not just in the United States, there are so many of those people, they get away with it because the people around them allow them to get away with it. Because it's easier that way. Like, how did Harvey Weinstein be able to do what he did for 40 years? The people around him enabled it. Because they could not tap into their own anger to him, or to get out of that situation, because they were afraid. They wanted money, they wanted to have a heap of food in their fridge, a roof over their head. Like, the way people just justify staying in a bad situation, understandable, absolutely understandable, but also bullshit. It's one of those things where I have compassion for that. I understand how hard it is to get out of a bad situation, but you're also enabling people. You're enabling bad people. That is always on those bad people, but we all share a degree of culpability in that. And I know that takes time. Like, enough people, it doesn't have to be everybody because it can't be, but if enough people all over the place were able to like say no and get the fuck out, a lot of that shit would just get cut out at the knees. So like that's also like where I see our society going as well. I'm seeing way more pushback on a lot of the dysfunctional shit that's coming out of the media because of Harvey Weinstein, because of Donald Trump, and these men who are so toxic, and everybody just kind of waking up to that, like, that's not cool, where a lot of these other people just kept it on the down low. Like, they were able to get away with it because they just weren't that loud about it, and then Donald Trump comes through and just knocks everything over and shows us just how fucked up everything is. So, because of the way that, fate weaves its tapestry, I don't personally believe that everything has a reason. Like, their chaos is a thing. I would say, like, 80% of this, like, yeah, that was woven. And then 20% of it is just, like, Loki shit. It's just chaos. And, like, that kind of balance just kind of, like, overlaps each other and just goes all over the place. So the order of the day was just all of these guys, and it was mostly men, not all men. There were quite a few other people who were in there, who just got away with being shitheads for a very long time. And our society, stemming from the end of World War II, has just been on a trajectory of change. So, to go circle back, to the child part, because like if you have kids, this is something to keep in mind. When I'm working with people, I don't recommend them reading books on spirituality to deal with their anger, because a lot of those spirituality books are marketing and just pure marketing. Not all of them, but God, the ones that I've seen that are just like at Barnes and Noble, they make no mention of how to process difficult emotions in a healthy way in those books. So, because like editors, publishers, they want something that will be bought. And what is sold other than quick fixes? People love quick fixes, and I understand that. That is part of the human condition. We follow the path of least resistance. We will choose what is the most practical and the easiest to get done. Like that's a human thing. Like that's not to say people are lazy. That is human. That is Homo sapien. That is our species does that across the world. And we don't have any more of our Homo cousins from like Homo erectus or like a Homo neanderthalis. I took anthropology at college too, so like we don't have them anymore. So maybe they behaved the same way, but since they're not around, we don't know. But like people will choose the easiest thing because that is an evolutionary benefit. You're not lazy for that. It's perfectly understandable. But since, we are basically chimps who can do math and can do really cool stuff with our thumbs, like the threshold is higher. Our reason for being can be higher. We can reach for more. We can better ourselves and try to rise above those base tendencies. It is hard. That's the other thing with the marketing of a lot of these books. Like, oh, change your life with these 3 easy steps. None of it is easy. And I think like that also sets people up to fail with a lot of this marketing, is to tell people like, oh, it's easy. So then when you can't do it, you feel like a failure. Does that make sense? Like, you're not a failure. You're just human. And you were taken in by marketing by people who should know better. Okay, so I have strep right now, so bear with me. There's going to be a bit of coughing. It's going to get gross. So it is what it is. All right. So the books that I would recommend anybody who wants to deal with their trauma, because nobody gets out of childhood not traumatized. I don't care how great your parents were, they still fucked it up. Even if you always had a roof over your head, you always had food in the fridge, you always had clothing, you never missed a day of school, you had health care, you went to the dentist, your parents still fucked it up. The best parents still fucked it up. So, like, it just holding like both of those equally in some kind of balance. Like, they messed it up, but they also tried their best, but their best wasn't good enough. And holding those two, and it's like this. Balance is like this. It's not this. It's this. Sometimes it's more over here. Sometimes it's more over here. And just holding it loosely, holding it gently. They did their best. They still fucked it up. So reading books about, like, say, like, there's this a really good book called Toxic Parents. And that is mostly about parents who had a personality disorder, like a cluster B personality disorder, or an addiction, or a disability. So, like, those kinds of books are really, really, really helpful, even if you weren't, like, actively abused most of the time. But reading books about trauma in childhood and how the adults that are around you failed, because they all fail in particular ways, is a really, really good place to start in understanding your own nervous system, is to understand child development, how children actually develop. A lot of us have no idea. The field is still very young. We really don't know a lot about it. But we are coming into a world where we have a much better understanding of it. And we're coming into a world where people are more likely to apply it. Whereas when my parents were young, it was like children need to be seen and not heard. And how dare you exist when I am doing something over here? Like, you need to go over there and exist. And seeing your children as if they were extensions of yourself. They are not. They are not. They are their own person. And children, like, they have a hard time regulating their emotions. And I have observed this just in my own life and with a lot of people around me. People expect children to behave better than the adults around them. You expect children to behave better than the adults. That is traumatizing. It is so traumatizing to a child. Like, I'm just going to let that sink in. Like, the expectation that a child is supposed to behave better than those around them. Hello. All right. So, if there are any questions, just go to the workshop chat too and let me know, because I don't think, other than Matt, I don't think any of you can talk right now because of the way that this thing is set up. So, reading books on traumatic childhoods is a great place to start, and also books about codependency. Because codependency is a result of an abusive situation, mostly in families with addictions. Like, my father is an alcoholic, and my mother is his enabler. So I had that dysfunctional upbringing where I was expected to behave a certain way because my mother was busy taking care of my father and his addiction. And we have more people. Hello, welcome. We are talking about anger and how it, and more people. Oh no, you just turned your thing on. All right, so for the new people, we're the thingy up here is workshop chat 2. If you have questions, like, there's going to be like an indicator that will pop up, and I will see it, and I will go over there, and I will read it, and I will answer it to the best of my ability. So, anger can be a good thing because it shows you where your no is. It shows you where the boundaries are. Reading books about childhood trauma, not necessarily like books on paganism or books on spirituality, those are great, but those are not going to help you process your anger. They're not set up that way. They're not written by people who have done research in that or have treated patients with anger issues or suppressed anger or anything like that. So, like, reading those secular books about how the nervous system processes trauma, processes anger, and how to deal with, like, that deep-seated rage just from existing in 3D in society, because this is a rage-inducing place. Like, that's also, like, something that needs to be acknowledged, is that living day to day, you're gonna get angry multiple times a day. That's okay. That is part of the full spectrum of your humanity. Because that's the other thing that I think, like, we live in a society that is shaped by Christianity, and it makes it seem like people need to rise above their base emotions and become like the angels or something. Oh, let me tell you something about angels. They're bureaucratic assholes. So, like they're not above stuff either. Like, all of these other entities that are in the spiritual realm, they get angry too. If we've ever read any form of mythology, everybody got angry and made some choices. Some were not so great. We just want to look over at Zeus. Anyway, so reading books about dysfunctional childhoods, reading books about if your parents had an addiction, if they had a mental illness, if they had a personality disorder, if they had a disability, if they were absent, if you were raised by someone else who was not your biological parent, like, that causes its own issues. So when children get angry and then they're punished for being angry, and that starts very, very young. Like, I have seen 8-month-old babies get mad. And then, like, I have watched people, like, put that kid in another room and then just leave them there to scream it out. Parent myself, I understand that. But, like, that child needs help being soothed, not to be isolated. But that takes time to learn how to do. Because as a parent, you can only take your kid as far as you yourself have come. And a lot of us have been like in just states of arrested development from like prepubescent, post-pubescent, like oh, there's the thing. All right, so Matt says we have probably all come across those folks that seem to be angry at everyone and everything. For those people, are there any tips you can give to help distinguish between the righteous anger and just being angry? I think so. Because the thing about like people who just seem angry all the time, I'm one of those people. But I do my absolute best to like not take it out on people. I'm just angry at the world for just existence is hard. But like the best way that I have found to like just to differentiate, how are they expressing it? Are they being mean to you because they're angry? You don't deserve that. Are they just angry in general? Then it's like, okay, then they're that angry in general and they're not directing it at any typical person. They just might just have a shorter fuse and they'll just see something on TV or they'll read something and then they just need to vent about it. But they're not being mean to you about it. They're not being mean to people about it. They're just mad. That tends to be righteous anger in my personal experience. But the ones who get mad and then call you names, who set you up to fail, who then do like sabotagey shit, who then like come down on you for it, or just shit like that. Like they're upset about one thing, and so they try to put you down because that's just the state they're in. That is not righteous anger. That's being a dick. That's like your anger has now metastasized. Your anger, because you don't know how to hold it, you're trying to pass it around to other people. Where with my own anger, I fail at this, but I try so hard to not make it anybody else's problem. Or when I'm upset about something, I do my absolute best to not be mean about it. But when you're in like that heightened state of awareness, when you're in that heightened state of like you are clearly angry and you've got people who you're talking to who still have their own like triggers, even if you're not being mean about it, they can also take it as if you are mad at them, even though you're really not. And so it's really just like really just like try to just like roll with it, or just try to like, you know, if the other person that you're talking to looks like, you know, they're gonna have a meltdown or something, or they're gonna be really upset about it, like just really just like try to calm it down, breathe through it. And let's see, it's 12:40. At 12:50, I got 10 more minutes of talking about it. I wanna do like an exercise, like a meditation that I like to focus on in like unsticking the suppressed rage that we all carry. Because a lot of the time when we're trying to do that work on anger, we're still dealing with the stuff that we've been carrying since we were 2. So trying to like deal with that and interact with other people when you've got your own shit, meditating on it, learning to hold it and not throwing it at other people, and learning how to just ground it out and let it go. Because a lot of it is just excess. There's like just like so much stuff that's on top of it, and like the excess rage, if you are able to learn how to ground a lot of that out, you're able to get to like the base threads of it, to understand like where is this actually coming from, rather than like trying to sift through all of the stuff that's sitting on top of it Like, if you just take the stuff that you're actually already done with, but you've been carrying around like a corpse, if you're able to, like, ground that into the earth, and then you could, like, deal with, like, the original issue, the original thing that got in there, and there are multiples. It's not just one thing. A lot of it is just, we're layered like onions. But yeah, people who are just angry in general versus righteous anger are ones, like the ones who are just angry, they're taking it out on other people. Righteous anger seeks to correct a wrong. It seeks to redress the person who, like, caused that to happen. Like, I knew that I could not have a relationship with my mother because she could not handle my righteous anger. She would say something, I, over the course of many years, learned to push back on it, and then she would come back even harder, and I would push back even more, and, like, no, we're not doing that. And then she would escalate it, and then I would have to just leave the room. And then she would follow me, and I would have to leave the house. And then she would blow up my phone, and I'd have to turn off my phone. So, like, there's a 4-step process in, like, building those boundaries. And, like, this can work with, it takes time to learn how to make it work, because this is like a reaching for a word and it's not coming. Trial and error. So, like, say you're dealing with a person that already causes you all kinds of angst in your life. You're going to have to adapt these as it goes on, and you're going to have to adapt it to the situation and also the power dynamics that are here. So, say, like, somebody just says something, like they make an offhand comment that you don't like, it's kind of hurtful. One of the things you can say is, like, you know what? Please don't talk like that. I don't like it. If that person is an honorable person who wants to keep you in their life, they'll stop. They'll stop immediately, and they'll never do it again. For when you raise that issue, when you tell someone, I don't like that, and if they want to keep you, they'll honor it. And that's also like growing a spine. That's like growing a thicker skin, growing in your ability to stand up for yourself, because you also want to keep this person. Example, when my boyfriend Zed and I first started dating, he's got a cleft chin. So, like, on a couple dates, I just called it a butt chin, and it was just a joke. Like, with you and your butt chin. And I would say, like, on our 4th date, he said, I don't really like that. Please don't call my chin a butt chin. And I was like, okay. And it's been 2 years, and I have never said it again. Because I want him in my life. It's simple shit like that. You tell someone, please don't do that. If they want to keep you, they will stop. If you want to keep them, you will tell them that you don't like it. So, to keep with that example, say, like, I'm just joking. God, you, like, come on. It's just a joke. You need a thicker skin. You need to roll with it. Like, it literally looks like a butt. Come on, man. And then that probably would have been one thing amongst others, like, if I behaved that way, that would have led to the ending of that relationship. Does that make sense? Because, like, and that's, like, the simple shit at the very beginning of a relationship. And that simple shit, when you're just starting to know someone, you're in a brand new situation, then, like, you want to keep this person, and it's also a really good litmus test to see if this is an honorable person who will listen and who wants to keep you. Like, the people who want to keep you will honor your no. The people who don't want to keep you will not honor it. And that's how you can tell the difference. So then the next step, like, if it gets escalated, like, if I, am just, like, still continuing to call him a butt chin, he can then say, okay, so, like, you're making this really weird. You're making this very awkward. I told you that I don't like this, and you're continuing to do it. Why are you doing that? I don't like it. That Step 2 is how you offer someone to save face, where you put the onus on them. You put the awkwardness on them because they are the ones who are doing the thing. They are the ones who are continuing to be a shithead. So that is like the next step. Like, you got step 1, please don't do that, and they'll either honor it or they won't. And if they don't, they escalate it, you go to step 2, which is you make it awkward for them. Because a lot of people never go beyond step 1, because then you have to like get stronger in those boundaries and you have to put it back on them, even though they're trying to put it on you. Like, oh my god, just get over it, it's funny. Like, well, I don't think it's funny. And you're making this really awkward now. I don't like it. Don't say that. And so that is another step where, like, that person, if they want to keep you, will be like, oh shit, they're serious. Okay, well, I guess I can't call them that. And so either they will change their behavior or they'll find something else to call you. And you're just playing whack-a-mole with them. So if that person honors it and they're able to, because you made it awkward for them and you put it back on them and they sit with it like, oh shit, I am doing that. Oh my god, oh, I feel bad. Because, you know, they're just, they haven't been told that before. So either they can grow as a person, they can get better as a person, and you can facilitate that growth because you want to keep them, then they can change and become better. Or it goes to step 3. And they're like, nope, I think you are being, you know, like, ridiculous. It's not a big deal. What the hell? I'm the one who's making it awkward. You're the one who's being awkward. It's just a butt chin. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what else? That is when you leave. You leave the situation where you're like, okay, cool. And then you give it breathing room. You do not talk to that person. You do not interact with them. And I know with like a work situation, or if you're living with them, this is more that takes out a whole other level of difficulty. And this is something that takes time and practice. So like I don't expect any of you to just go out and do that like right now. Don't. Stick with step 1 and just see the people in your life. If you push back just a little bit, like, you know what, I don't like that. And just see who like goes along with it. Like, oh, I had no idea. And they stop. And then all of the people who continue. Then work on that. Like, that is a great place to start, is just step 1. Is learning how to defend yourself. Work with a friend. Have a friend say, just tell a friend, like, just say something mean to me. It can be anything. And then practice saying, you know what, I don't like that. Please don't say that. Start with a friend, someone who cares about you. And practice that. And then, like, the other steps, practice that with a friend as well, so that, you know, you learn it by rote. Like, it gets into your nervous system. Like, it's really, really hard to do that with a person that you already have animosity towards, that you're already in, like, there's already tension there. Like, that's really hard to do. But if you start with a friend, it's kind of like when you're practicing martial arts or something, or practicing the piano. Like, you practice before you go into competition. You get the muscle memory, you get it into your mind, you get it into your nervous system. You allow those changes to happen, and also learn to sit with the emotions that come up. Like, if you say to someone, please don't do that, what emotions come up? How do you feel about that? And then sit with those emotions. Talk about them with someone who cares about you. If you don't have access to therapy, you do have a friend who isn't a judgmental bastard. You do have a family member who isn't going to come down on you. We do have those people in our lives. You may think that you don't, but you do. And part of, like, unlearning a lot of that is really to just, like, take those boxes apart. I don't have anyone in my life. Is depression. That's depression. You do have people in your life, but your brain is telling you that you don't, but you do. So learning to overcome that is just, it's practicing boundaries with yourself as well, because you can have like a lot of anger towards yourself. Like, I have put my own self, like my own emotional bandwidth, into a headlock where I just like put myself like, you are going to be nice to me. And marijuana helps with that. It's not for everybody, but it definitely helped me. But like, just like going back at myself, like, you will not speak to me that way, and pushing back on it. Because a lot of the time, those voices, those negative things that are in your head, are the voices of like adults from when you were a child saying shit like that. And once I was able to take down a lot of that shit that was like from outside in, that was the easy part. And then dealing with the stuff that I was actually mad about myself, like me, like this was actually me, like this wasn't my mom, this wasn't the cover of a magazine I saw when I was 5, this wasn't a teacher, this is me legitimately mad at me. That is the tough part. That's like the big boss. That's still working on that. But it's literally like, you will be nice to me in my own house. I live here. This is my house. So if you're not going to be nice to me in my own house, you can get the fuck out. And learning how to deal with yourself in that way, allowing yourself to get angry. That's where that energy is. That's where that strength comes from, is that anger. It's a good thing to be like, you will not be mean to me. And letting that anger sit in your chest of like think of it as like a shield, as like armor. Of like, my anger, I am so angry that you will not talk me out of it. What you did is so stupid and so shitty, you will not talk me out of it. Because I care about myself. I have more self-esteem than to let you poke holes in it. You don't get to do that. This is my fucking house. You don't get to be mean in my house. Like that helps a lot. If you don't want to start with a friend, but to start with yourself, like negative self-talk, intrusive thoughts, like there's cognitive behavioral therapy. There's a lot of stuff that you can do to change that train of thought. Puns. So, start with yourself. Start with people that you will probably succeed with. Start with a friend, learning how to do all of that. Because then that third step of like taking yourself out of the situation, and then give that some breathing room. Because this is something that I had to learn with my mother, where like just I pushed back on it, told her I didn't like it, she escalated it, we went to step 3, I took myself out of the situation, it helped that I didn't live with her, and then I gave her like 6 months where I just ignored her emails, I ignored her texts, I ignored her knocking on my door, like I didn't answer the door. I had to sit with the feeling of being a bad daughter. I had to sit with the feeling of like, I'm a bad person because I'm treating my mother this way. But I had had enough. I had had enough. I chose myself. I chose my own sense of peace. I chose my anger over her peace. Me feeling bad was her peace. No. So, step 4, like if they can't be trained, because I gave my mother 6 months of just not answering. And my sisters were blowing up my phone, and I told my sisters, like, yeah, I'm just not talking to mom right now. Why? I'm like, well, that's between her and I. I did not speak badly about her. I did not go into details because it was none of their business. One of my cousins was like, yeah, your mom was talking about how you're not talking to her. And I was like, yeah, my mother and I are having a fight. And I just left it at that. I didn't go into the details because it's none of anybody's business. And those people were on my mother's side. They weren't going to help me. So there were a few other people that had heard about it who were on my side, and they're like, oh my God, your mom. I'm like, yeah, my mom. Those were the people I could open up to and talk about it because they understood that she could be a difficult person. So step 4 is, if you give that time, like 6 months, I gave her 6 months, and then I re-instigated speaking to her. She went right back at it. She went immediately back into the original issue. And I was like, Mom, I need you to stop. I haven't spoken to you for 6 months because of this very issue. I need you to not do this. This is something I am not going to move around. This is not something you're going to talk me out of. If you want me in your life, you will not treat me this way, is what I said. And she said, fuck you. So I said, okay, cool. And I hung up the phone. And it's been 4 years and I still haven't spoken to her. That is step 4. If these people cannot be retrained, they do not want you in their life. That's when you find other housing, you find another job, you get a different set of friends. These are the steps to changing the dynamics in your personal life. It takes time. Like these are time-consuming steps. Like this takes bravery. This takes work, and it's a years-long process. If you want to give it that years-long process, but it starts with honoring the fact that you're angry at being treated poorly. Before we go into the meditation, are there any questions? So I'm going to look at the workshop chat too. So before we go into a meditation, if you guys have any questions or troubleshooting or ideas or anything you want to talk about, like I'm assuming you all can hear me and you haven't like walked away and left your Discord open. I don't know. I can't see you guys. I've been talking to myself this entire time. Hello, Cheryl. Hello. So let me look at the workshop chat too. I can't see like the ... sign. Oh, Cheryl, here we go. I did not get that notification. It's amazing how threatened people are when someone sets boundaries, even if they're not actually the one of the people involved. Absolutely. So that also goes back to childhood. A lot of the time, the people who cannot handle the fact that you're setting a boundary is because in their minds, they think they're a good person. You don't need to set boundaries with people who are good, right? Right? They're a good person. You're shaking the foundation of the idea that I'm a good person. And that is the main culprit there, is that they have an idea of who they are. You're getting in the way of that. How dare you? So the people who are worth having around know that it's all gray. I know I am a good person, but I also know I can be very shitty. I can be the pettiest fucker ever. I have some very angry tendencies. Like I have done some shit that I am not proud of. I've done shit that was absolutely warranted, and I've done a lot of shit that absolutely was not. It's holding both equally. Holding both loosely. Keeping that in balance. I'm shades of gray. And I know I still have work to do. I still have things that need to be developed. I still have triggers. I still have old trauma. I still have things that need to be worked out. But for the people that are in my life and I want to be in their lives and they tell me, hey, that sucked, the thing that you did, the thing that you said, and if I want to keep them, I will hold that and I will apologize and I will never ever do it again if I want to keep them. Depending on what it is. All right. Kaiju Nelly, I see you like talking. Are you typing?
Oh, I just got an email and I told somebody I was in a thing.
Oh, okay. You're fine.
Yeah. I'm fine.
All right. For anybody else who is in here, if you want to take, apparently you guys can't speak. That's great. If you want to write it down or you want to take it off mute and ask a question, because I love questions. I absolutely love questions. I love it. It's my favorite. Let's see. Come on, be brave. Ask a question or just a comment, just a response of what I've said, because a lot of this is heavy. It's heavy. Like, I threw a lot at you guys. This is a really difficult subject. I would love to hear a response. So I got a response from Matt and Cheryl. What about the rest of you? Come on.
Do I just like do this and go?
Yeah.
God, the light's really harsh. Okay. Oh no, I just wanted to say I relate because I did actually have to for quite some time drop a couple family members from my life. And a couple of them are still cut from my life. I had to create boundaries. Especially speaking as a transgender individual. Yeah, there had to be some major boundaries set, and like, hey, you have a certain amount of time that I'm willing to put up with this, but you have to stop, otherwise you're out of my life. And they took it as an idle threat, and I'm like, no, I care about myself too much than to let it go on.
Yeah. That's also part of where our society is shifting, is that people are going outside of the gender binary. People are leaving concepts that are really restrictive, but other people find those restrictions comfortable because it gives them a sense of normalcy. And it also makes them feel like they're right. I'm living the right way. And I think Christianity in general, because I'm just speaking from like the United States. I know every religion has its own issues, including heathenry. Oh my God! But like Christianity has this binary idea, and there's not a lot of room for gray area, and that's essentially what you're pushing up against, is like all of those societal expectations that were just downloaded into people from the time they were infants, and the only way they are ever going to get a chance to grow is if they get pushed back. And some of them will do the growth, and a lot of them won't. And we have to mourn those losses and grieve it as the death that it is. Because it is a death. That's the death of the relationship, the death of the idea of who you thought they were and who they thought you were. And man, it's tough with the way that things are going right now. We as a society, like, the planet is on fire. Our society, like, we are like at a critical place to lose our democracy. Neighbors are at each other's throats, and it's like, this is a wake-up call. Like, this is shadow work. And one of the ways we're going to get through it is to tap into our righteous anger and say, no, you're not going to act like this. We can be better. We can be better. We can do better. So I hope that helps. I hope what I have said has helped just like help you guys feel seen, and that your emotional bandwidth is valid. And I hope that you have tools to better understand yourself and those around you. Because one of the things that helped me so much in dealing with toxic, abusive people is to understand that they are also in so much pain. And they are also angry. It's valid, but the way that they're expressing it isn't. And the only way that they are ever going to be helped by that is to be held accountable. The best thing you could do for an abusive person that you want to keep is to try to train them out of it, to help them grow. And it's also one of those things where it's like, why do I have to be that person? Why can't they do the change? Because that's the way it's always been. That's humanity. People are not going to change because they want the easy stuff. And also, like, the people who want to change will change. So if you give them the opportunity and they don't take you up on it, that's not your fault. The work stops there. That person, like my mother didn't want to do the work. She didn't want to keep me. She wanted to keep her idea of me. She wanted me to stay in a box of like who I should be, but she wasn't willing to do the work to take that box down and to allow me to be whatever box I want to be, because boxes are cool. I like boxes. I like that whole thing where like, don't put me in a box. I love them. I don't like labels. I love labels. Just give me all of them. But like that's me. But I like to shift labels. Like, okay, so this person is no longer a he. This person is a she. Okay, I'm going to take that label off, toss it over here, and put this new label on. That's helpful for me. But I want you guys to know that none of this is your fault, but it is your responsibility. All the shit that happened to you when you were a child wasn't your fault. But now you as an adult, you have a responsibility to grow and change from it. To not use your pain to whip other people with it. It's not okay. And I hope that like you can learn to sit with your pain and to grow from it rather than to try to like spread it around and turn it into a weed and throw it at other people. Because it's not okay. Cheryl, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say that alcoholic families, or I guess any dysfunctional family like that, they're so complicated. I mean, for me to, this wasn't my situation, but I can imagine that it's possible that when you choose to to challenge the enabler, for example, that also challenges sort of her role in the larger structure. You know, it kind of raises the issue that maybe she didn't handle this right. Maybe the whole way that she enabled was not okay. That the whole thing is just toxic. And people, that's a big thing to face because it's larger than just you and her or whatever, you know, is going on in anyone's individual family. You're really threatening the whole family structure when you do that.
Absolutely. And that's why she chose my dad instead of me. Like she chose the toxic environment that they had created together over me. And she wanted me to continue to just be in that toxic environment and not comment on its toxicity. Like being in a pool that has radioactive material, please do not mention the radioactive mess that's in here. Because they're the ones who put it there. And then they would have to take it out, but, you know, they don't have, like, a lead sheet or anything. Like, they don't... My mother did not have the coping mechanisms to do that work. And, you know, it's just one of those things. The desire to change is, like, just the first step. Like, you wanting to change is all that's really needed, but then it's also getting the right tools. Like, you can want to change, but then you don't have access to help, you don't have access to good people, you don't have access to books, you don't have access to the things that will help you change. Like, just even, like, good, wholesome TV shows helps. Like, watching The Good Place helped me a lot. And watching, like, Sex Education and learning how to communicate in that way. Oh god, I love the content that's coming out right now. It's so good. That's like I can only imagine like the teenagers who are watching Sex Education and they're like, "Oh my god, I can stand up for myself. I can ask for what I want." Oh my god. Like I didn't have that. A lot of us didn't have that. But all right, it's 1:10. And the next class is at 2. I feel like I have said what needed to be said. And then you guys could go to drop into the other workshop rooms if you want. I don't care. Just it's your day. Peg your pride. But we're going to do the meditation, and then we will close out. Okay? We're good? Alright, so the way I go about meditation is that it's different for everybody. I'm not one of those meditation people where my mind needs to be cleared or whatever, because that's not my brain. So, like, trying to get to a place of, like, no thoughts or distractions is not a thing. But You can like create a space in your mind that's kind of isolated. You could create a box that you're sitting in where all of the other thoughts and whatever is just, bouncing around and hitting it. But like if you could just give yourself 5 minutes to just breathe it out and just not like be that distracted by it, like that also takes time and training. But like I can't calm my mind. My mind is going to do the squirrely shit. But what I can do is just like, while the brass band is playing over here, I'm going to focus over here and tune out the brass band. Is just how I learned how to do it. Because like trying to silence all of that is just, there's too many plates to spin. So I just want to like say that like meditation doesn't have to be that. There are so many different modes of meditation. Hell, just like sitting with a rosary and doing like the Christian prayers is a form of meditation. And just repetitive prayers, repetitive things, like having a tool in your hand and then going through it, that's also a meditation. Like in your imagination, going somewhere, talking to someone, that's also a meditation. It's not just like focusing on your breath. That's just where our thought is right now in the spiritual community. But there are many, many, many ways to meditate. And it behooves you to find what actually works for your mind, because most of us in the pagan community are neurodivergent, and a lot of that meditation stuff is made for neurotypical people, and most of us are not neurotypical. I'm not neurotypical. So like learning what works for you, and do not go against the grain, go with the flow of your own mind, you will get so much more success out of like trying to tune into your nervous system. All right, so get yourself comfortable. The whole thing where like, oh, put both feet on the floor, square this, like, just be comfortable. Your legs can be crossed, your arms can be crossed. Like, just be comfortable in your own body. Do what you got to do. Like, I don't know where that whole like put your feet on the floor, split yourself. Like, I don't know where that came from, because that never worked for me. That's not comfortable for me. Like, I like having my legs crossed. That's more comfortable. Anyway, your magic is your own. The way you process is your own. All right, so we close our eyes because that helps me. Some people can do this with their eyes open. You do you. We're going to take a breath in, and we're going to breathe out. One of the, like a beginner meditation I like to do with people is to breathe in good stuff. Anything that you can imagine is good. Like, breathe in the smell of cookies in the oven. Breathe in your grandmother's perfume. Breathe in the memory of like the sheets that have been in your grandma's cedar chest and you put them on the bed. Breathe that in. Something that, like a smell or a feeling or a memory that is good, that brings you joy, that brings you peace, brings you contentment. Breathe that in. And then when you breathe out, imagine tension. Give it a color. For me, it's black. For you, it could be brown, it could be green, it could be murky, it could be like whatever your mind assigns something that's just like ick. Breathe that out. And watch it turn to ashes, to dust. And as it just floats about the room, it falls to the floor. And then eventually you'll take the vacuum cleaner and you'll vacuum that up when you're ready to do that. Breathe in the good stuff. My mother had a cedar chest that she kept her bed sheets in. And then whenever she changed the bed sheets, I would dive in and just breathe in those sheets. It was such a beautiful smell. And that's where I go. I breathe that in and I breathe out tension. I breathe out the ick that is in my body. You let in the good, and you breathe out the stuff that is just not. All right. So that's a very simple one. That's a good one that you can do when you're trying to fall asleep, when you're trying to relax, when you're sitting and watching TV, when you're working on a craft. I like to knit. I'm working on a ridiculous sweater right now. So that's a very simple technique because I'm not one that does light shit like, oh, breathe in the white light. Your nervous system doesn't know what white light is. It knows it as a lamp. It knows it as like Jesus going and doing stuff. But like, it's okay to believe in Jesus. Jesus is cool. But like, breathe in the white light. Your nervous system doesn't understand what white light is. Your nervous system does understand those good feelings of a memory that is good. My nervous system loves that memory of the smell of cedar when my mom changed the bed sheets. My nervous system loves the smell of cookies that are in the oven. Loves that smell. Absolutely, just like, I'm in a very good mood when I smell that. When stew is cooking, when your favorite person is over and you're doing your favorite things, breathe that in. Your nervous system understands that. And your nervous system understands letting the shit go. Because that's the other thing that I don't like about certain things, where it's like, where you find the trauma in yourself. Give it a hug. Tell it thank you. No, don't do that. Kick it out. Find a cliff and shove it off. The thing that's bothering you inside of you. The thing that's nagging at you, like, oh, you should have done this differently. Take yourself to a cliff face. I like the White Cliffs of Dover. It's a really great place to murder someone. My nervous system loves that. So, like, this idea that I'm supposed to look a certain way is a voice in my head. I drag it to the cliffs of Dover and I throw it off. The more I do that, the less strong that voice is. Like, get the fuck out of my house. That's also a valid meditation. Hugging and thanking those things doesn't tell your nervous system that you're done. Your nervous system is basically the ape part of you. And if you hug it and thank it, then it's like, oh, then this is a good thing, right? Because it doesn't know any better. But your nervous system, watching you shove it off a cliff, shove it into a fire, shoving it, like watching the earth open up in an earthquake, shoving it in, and then closing the earth behind it, your nervous system is like, okay, that needs to go. And then it gets easier and easier and easier, and the voices get quieter. It takes time, it takes practice. So, how are we doing? Good? Yes, I am a witch that has no more shits to give. None. Look upon my field of fucks. There are none growing. like, stupid people be damned. Get out of my life. Like, you have a right to say no. You have a right to have peace in your house. You have a right to exist as you are. You have a right to grow in a conducive way that doesn't involve being berated or being called names. You don't have to exist like that. Nobody does. My other favorite meditation, there's one other one. All right, so we're going to close our eyes. There's a bed behind me because this is how I live my life. There is tension in our bodies. There is excess rage, excess anger, the anger that is not doing anything for you. Where it's just like slime on top of like topsoil or something. You don't need it. You don't need to dig through that. You don't need to examine that and then discard it or keep it or whatever. You don't need to. It's garbage. We are carrying corpses. We are carrying old thoughts and old dreams. We are carrying old timelines that we did not take with us. We did not go down that road, but we carry it with us because we're hoarders. All of that stuff is garbage. And our nervous system, our inner being, our souls know what is garbage. You don't need to consciously go through it. It's not necessary. The stuff that you are already done with, the stuff that you are already worked through, but is still hanging around because human's gonna human. I want you to imagine that there's a hole at the bottom of your feet. There's a hole that goes straight to the center of the earth. And at the center of the earth is a molten core. It's fire. It's sulfur. It stinks. Like if you threw somebody down there, they'd have a bad time on their way down. It's not a good place. It is a place of destruction. It is a place of death. It is a place of letting go. I want you to imagine gathering up all of that tension, all of that excess rage, all of that excess anger, all of those things that are just cluttering your existence. Whatever it is that you do not need and you know you don't need it, throw it into that hole. If you want to put it into a garbage bag or into a sack, however you gather up that stuff, like I just kind of like it, just take it and just dump it. But however it comes to you is valid. But I want you to take all of that garbage and I want you to throw it in there. And I want you to watch it be destroyed. I want you to watch it fall into that pit and watch it hit the center of the earth to be destroyed, to be burned, to turn into ashes. You don't need it. And watching the things that have harmed you be destroyed is how we process it. You don't have to hug it. You don't have to thank it. It wasn't good. It was never good. You don't have to thank your abuser for teaching you something. No, you don't have to be grateful to them. You could just kick them out. And that's okay. You throw it to the center of the earth. You watch it be destroyed. And then you cover that up. And you let it go. And I like to never think about it again, but sometimes it's okay to dwell on things. It's okay to deal with that those kind of feelings. If something gets caught on the way down and is now like in that pit screaming at you, it's okay to reach in and pull that back up because maybe you're not done with it. Because I want you to get rid of the garbage, the stuff that is just taking up room that you know you're done with. But if stuff gets caught on the sides, then you're probably not done with it. And it needs to be examined. This is all the stuff that doesn't need to be examined. Because we carry a lot of that shit. And it is bullshit. We don't need it. It takes up room. And then it makes it harder to actually go through the stuff that we're not done with to put it out there, because then you got all this garbage that's all in there. Like, I don't need you. You don't need to be here too. Shove it into the center of the earth where it will die. It will be destroyed. Another way to go about that is to dig a grave. Even if it's like you just want to go out to your backyard or the backyard of a friend and you like can write out a bunch of the shit that you are just done with. Dig a hole, put it in, put the dirt on top of it, and walk away. Signal to your nervous system that it's dead. And that is how you will start to process a lot of that shit. Now, if the whole thanking and hugging works for you, great. That's strange, but good for you. That's fine. Not knocking that. I just don't think it doesn't work for me, and it doesn't with the people that I've worked with in my going on 11 years of doing this professionally. Hasn't worked for them. Hasn't worked for me. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to speak up for yourself. Out of your life who obviously don't want to be in it since they're not treating you well. All of that is okay. For Pagan Pride, donations are accepted. And what else did Twyla want me to say? Matt, where did you go? But yeah, there's Pagan Pride is a charity organization, and they raise money for various causes. Like when we meet in person, the entry fee is a non-perishable food. So like checking that out. And Twyla, what was I supposed to say?
It's a little late now, you think?
What was I supposed to say?
All it was is you were supposed to say at the beginning that this was going to be recorded.
Oops. Yep, recorded. Have fun with that. I failed. I'm sorry,
Lucky
Twyla.
you live in Wisconsin right now. Other than that, that was it. The donations obviously something to help Kate Pagan Pride on its feet. The last 2 years have been extremely difficult financially for us because even though we're virtually, we still have bills to pay, including like hosting the website, hosting Discord, things like that. So if you're capable of participating with donation, that's great. If not, we completely understand that everyone is struggling right now. Hope everyone enjoyed the workshop. We have another set of workshops coming in about a half an hour. We're live streaming in an altar space on YouTube right now, and the chat groups are all open for anyone that wants to discuss and hang out and chat. So that's it.
Awesome. Well, all right. I hope you guys have a good day. Greetings from the North Woods of Wisconsin, where I decided to go and be a bog witch.
Megan, do you have a website or social media? Are you doing anything like that right now?
Yes. My business is called Superior Apothecary, and I am on the shores of Lake Superior, and we sell tea and candles and balms and other stuff, but it's like superior-apothecary.com. I also do readings and sessions. I do coaching. I help you unfuck your mind. I do all kinds of things, like lovingly, but I will yell at you to feel better. That's what I'm good at. But all right. I hope you guys have a good day. Hope things are better. And I hope that you tell awful people to stick it where the sun doesn't shine.